All right, Mark Rogers, TV ACC, looking at the December 28th matchup in the Russell Athletic Bowl between two old Big East foes. They last met in 2003, talking Miami, currently out of the ACC, and, of course, West Virginia, now out of the Big 12. We can only do this right if we bring in Cam Underwood from State of the U. Cam, I know you're struggling. It's a couple days to Christmas. I hope you can make it to the finish line for us, but more importantly, for the holidays.
Yeah, I'm playing a little injured today. You can hear me a little congested. Got the always fun South Florida winter cold. So, just gotta play injured sometimes. Just gotta stick it out for the team, one game at a time, one sentence at a time, and hopefully everything will work out.
So your team's 8-4, and I'm guessing, based on our conversations in the offseason, that's pretty much about where you had them pegged. Of course, there was optimism to be able to break through, get the win against FSU, do some other special things, win the division. Didn't happen. Not a down year, though. 8-4, Mark Richt's first year. Depending on what happens in the bowl game here, are you pleased? Are you satisfied? Dissatisfied? Where would the meter read after 12 games for you?
After 12 games, I was one of the only guys on our site who had us 8-4. So this is exactly where I thought we would be. I didn't think that it would be in this way, i.e. losing 4 of the 5 games in October and 4 in a row, and for Florida State again. And I mean, yeah, there's no moral victories, so I'm just going to leave it there. There are no moral victories, so we lost those games. Yeah, this is pretty much par for the course. I thought that we would see. We could have done better, obviously, through the month of October. Let games that we easily could have won slip away. So that's not a positive thing. But, you bookend it with 4-game winning streaks at the beginning and end. So that's how we come into bowl season, get a win in the bowl game. If we beat West Virginia for the first time since 2006, then you're 9-4, heading into the final stretch of recruiting right before National Signing Day. And that's like my baby. That's my thing. That's what I got started blogging, talking about. So, I love that. But, it could be worse. But, yeah, I think this is about where we could have been. Obviously, yeah, there was a chance to do a little bit better. But overall, I think I'll be pleased with the development, especially when you're looking at the performance on the defensive side of the ball all year long. Yeah, even at, 9-4, that would be a positive step for me.
Great segue. Let's talk defense, because when I think glass half full for this 8-4 season thus far, I think defense. So what impresses me is that you go from 69th in the nation in total defense in 2015 all the way up to 27th. What makes that even more impressive than just the sheer stats is you do that with 5 or 6 true freshmen playing a lot, and all the linebackers. So usually you see the improvement from the freshman to the sophomore year, but to bring in that many freshmen and improve that much, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, and it was just a complete culture shift and paradigm shift from previous. Got rid of all that 2-gapping and soft zone stuff. And like we talked about before, just getting up the field, creating havoc in the backfield, making plays. Defensive coordinator and linebackers coach Manny Diaz, the architect of the scheme, and defensive line coach Craig Kuligowski, who for my money is the best DL coach in America. They've done work, plain and simple. So, I mean, you look at Diaz, who rebuilt this defense playing a Miami style, mainly 4-3, even though we did see some 3-4 at times, especially, against what was the game? I think it was Duke and Georgia Tech, where we saw a lot of 3-4, and a couple, intrepid Canes fans took some screenshots and labeled it out and said, no, this is a 3-4, guys, but still making plays. So Diaz comes in and he works with Shaq Quarterman, who played middle backer, a freshman All-American by every group that's put up a freshman All-American list. Next to him, Michael Pinckney. And then on the other side of him, Zach McLeod, all 3 true freshmen early enrollees. So they were finishing up high school a year ago from now. And then, last January, so 11 and a half months ago, they hit campus. Those 3 guys started and played a lot. And they did have a couple freshman moments. You look at that game in Virginia Tech that got away from us a little bit. They had some, freshman growing pains, but they were few and far between as opposed to what you would think starting 3 true freshmen at linebacker, game in and game out, home, road, otherwise. So those guys, they stepped up. They played really, really well. On the defensive line, even though his numbers only took a slight uptick, Chad Thomas finally started looking like the dominant player that we thought he could be coming out of high school, a 5-star recruit, one of the last 5-star recruits on this team right now. He's playing really well. Trent Harris, the joke, his nickname is Trusty Trent because he just does his job. He's not athletically explosive like that. He's 6'2", 245 at a D end outside. Well, he played outside backer in the 3-4, but that kind of edge spot. But he just does his job. Kendrick Norton and RJ McIntosh on D tackle, they've both taken huge steps forward. Anthony Moten was playing snaps. Cortel Jenkins playing snaps at defensive tackle. Gerald Willis coming on, a transfer from Florida who sat out last year. He played pretty well. He's going to miss the bowl game after having a knee procedure, I believe it was. But that's 5 deep right there at defensive tackle, which was looked at as a position of dearth previously. But you come in, you get a new staff, boom, those guys are playing great. And then I have to end this with just giving a shout out to my man, number 99, Joseph Jackson, who, if you remember, been watching these videos from recruiting last year, I told you that kid was a cyborg. I told you that kid was a 5-star player. And the only reason he wasn't a 5-star was because he committed to Miami early in his junior year and didn't waver, didn't take any visits, and nobody talked about him in the recruiting industry because it wasn't going to generate clicks because everybody knew this kid was coming to Miami. Ends the season with the most sacks on the team, second most tackles for loss. He was named a freshman All-American in a couple of different lists and things. So he didn't start from day one like the linebackers did. So he kind of had that exponential increase. So it kind of was flat, and then all of a sudden takes off like a rocket ship, while those guys kind of had the steady, kind of graph if you're charting that. So it took him a minute to go. But, man, listen, I'm telling you, that kid is good, and he proved it. So I think he had like 5.5, 6.5 sacks. Joseph Jackson's pretty good. But you put all that together for the last couple minutes, you got guys up front in the front seven who are playing really well, even the guys who are backups, Charles Perry, Mike Smith, guys like that. Darion Owens coming back off of a knee injury that he sustained last year. All guys coming back in that front seven, really playing well and getting up the field, holding team. I think we're averaging, 18.8 points allowed per game on the season. Look, I mean, if you can hold a team under 20, you should be able to win most of those games. Unfortunately, our offense didn't produce to get those results through the month of October, but this defense brings it, and it starts with that front seven.
Yeah, so now you face a West Virginia team, and you still got 6 days to prepare, not just talking about Miami preparing for West Virginia, but you preparing for the Mountaineers in regards to knowing what's going on. But I don't know how much you've delved into it yet, but they're the typical Dana Holgorsen team that's got a bunch of little guys that run around, line up in the slot, line up wide. They go like 5 deep in the backfield. So they got a lot of different guys that are kind of jitterbug kind of guys downfield that get open in space and make guys miss. Skyler Howard is not a guy that we expect to see starting for an NFL team in 3 or 4 years, but as a college quarterback, very effective. Over 500 yards of total offense for this offense. Again, it's the Big 12, so that's a disclaimer there. But have you seen much of West Virginia? They did win 10 games and were very successful, especially, again, on offense.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of West Virginia. Being from South Florida, there's, a few South Florida guys on their roster. Even guys from Miramar High School, which, pays these bills for me on a daily basis. So I do know some of those guys. And I've seen a little bit of their team, but yeah, they do have a potent offense. Obviously, they run the ball better than you would expect. If you're thinking of Dana Holgorsen offense, if you're thinking about a previous Miramar High School alum, Geno Smith, back there a few years ago, just throwing the ball all over the place. If you're thinking that, where they're throwing it 70 times a game like they did, what was that Saturday night primetime game against Texas, Geno Smith's senior year? You're thinking about that, West Virginia. They're going to throw it up too. However, they run it very effectively as well. And that's the thing where I think that Miami is going to really have to lock down. We don't necessarily allow teams to be very efficient running the ball on a yards per rush allowed average. So we're going to need to continue that kind of thing. The raw number doesn't matter to me. But if you're getting, 2.3, 2.1 yards per carry, that's something that'll stop a drive. Because, 4.2 yards per carry, That's 3 carries in a row and a first down all the way down the field. 2 yards a carry, that's 3 carries for 9 yards or a little bit under and a punt. So that yard and a half per carry matters. So we really want to keep locking that in. And then our secondary, which, is played pretty well this year, they're going to have to continue to step up. Corn Elder has played amazingly this year. Should have been first team all ACC in my mind, but I believe he got second team, which was debatable. But there were a lot of good cornerbacks in the ACC, so I'm not going to say that that's the biggest snub ever. But again, Hurricane wearing green, orange. I would say that he should have been first team, having watched him all year long. He plays really well. Rayshawn Jenkins has had a very, very good redshirt senior year from a safety spot, a couple interceptions, some physical play. Jamal Carter, the other starting safety, he's chiseled. He's physically developed in a prototypical kind of way. Not the greatest football player, but, if you're having a modeling contest looking at a physique, that's the first guy you're going to pick. So he's made some mistakes, taken some bad angles on some plays, but he's been a little more solid recently, so we're going to need that from him. Adrian Colbert, transfer from Texas, playing cornerback now, played safety at Texas for 4 years. He's coming back off of a forearm injury. He broke that at Notre Dame, which was his coming out party to me. He had a great game at Notre Dame. There was a specific drive, I think it was a third quarter, and Notre Dame came up and they ran that, that now screen to the wide receiver side. So they had 2 receivers stacked, 1 defensive back. And so they ran that for about 5 yards, got 4th and 2, and hustled up to the line and said, we're going to do that again. And he beat his block and tackled that receiver for a loss on 4th and 2 to the wide side of the field. And there was nobody, if you split the field, on a byline in the middle, there was nobody else over there for the Hurricanes. I mean, it was literally you make that play or, we end up losing the game. But, that game would have been put away at that point. And he played really well that game. Kind of hurt to lose him. I wanted to see him continue to play through these last 4 games, but he'll be coming back. Sheldrick Redwine's been okay this year, but not really taking a step forward. Jaquan Johnson is playing all over the secondary. He's played corner, slot, free safety, strong safety. He's even played some outside backer, depending on what, the alignment is. So we have a lot of guys who have played snaps. Oh, my goodness, and I almost forgot the other true freshman, the 5th one that you were talking about, Malik Young. He's the guy who stepped in over Redwine, who's a sophomore, and started when Colbert went out. And he, again, just like Joe Jackson, had that exponentially increasing kind of improvement over the year. He didn't really play much early, played a little special teams, but started the last 3 or 4 games, really played well. So, add him in the mix also as well. So you got 7 or 8 guys, excuse me, in that secondary who can come in and really be effective. So, the front 7, we're really going to need them to lock down those intermediate routes and that running game. And that secondary is going to need to step up because, you got playmakers on West Virginia's offense, even though I don't think that their quarterback is that good. But, the secondary is going to have to do their job to put Miami in a position to win this bowl game.
Cam Underwood from State of the U, helping us talk up West Virginia and Miami Russell Athletic Bowl. Let's look at the offense because as much as the defense was a bright spot with all the improvement, despite the youth coming in and the 3 studs at linebacker really taking hold, and despite the growing pains that you mentioned, playing lights out most of the time, the disappointment continues to be the offensive line. So when I think Miami woes at offensive line, the way we've discussed it for a few years and looked at it, and I've watched the big games, is in protecting Brad Kaya. But the big disappointment in addition this year was you have the 2 very capable running backs. First 3 games of the season, you come back, come out of the gate and run the ball extremely well. 2 of the opponents you completely overmatched. App State, a little bit higher grade of an opponent, but still outclassed them. You run the ball really well. Then once you hit the ACC during the losing stretch you talked about, even marginal to decent run defenses were able to contain you.
Yeah, and that was frustrating. We leaned on FAU, Florida A&M University, and App State, kind of the way we should have leaned on those teams. Like it doesn't really matter if Miami is great, right now. We should be leaning on those teams running the ball all like that we want to, and we did. There was just a lot of breakdowns throughout the year. And even some of that was accredited to Mark Walton maybe rushing a little bit and trying to get ahead of his blocks. I was trying to look for a tweet, but David Hale from ESPN put up a tweet a little bit ago. Think like Mark Walton's first 15 games against Power 5 teams, he averaged 3.1 yards per carry or less than that. But his last 4 or 5, I think he's up at 6.7 yards per carry against, Power 5 teams. So that would be all of your ACC teams, your Notre Dames of the world, things like that. So there has been improvement throughout this year. So that is something that is good. We have had a couple injuries on the offensive line, and that have caused us to reshuffle some things. Trevor Darling, starting left tackle, who's only at tackle because we don't have really anybody else. He went down, replaced by Casey McDermott. And then Sonny Adogwu, starting right tackle. He hurt his knee or foot or something, but he's been out also. So then we have a sophomore Tyree St. Louis come in there. So, and then, just at center, also Nick Linder went down. So you bring in Alex Ball and you shuffle around and whatnot. And, so you have a different group playing now than played before. And lacks really great talent up along the offensive line, but the cohesion has been a lot better. And, you don't have to be the greatest if you play together. And I think that you're seeing that become borne out on the field. So, playing against a tough NC State team who did not allow any single rusher to crack them for 100 yards. Well, Lamar Jackson hit him for 100 yards, but if you take away the sack yardage, he ended up with less. So I know Pro Football Talk is trying to say rushing yardage and sack yardage is different. So if you count that, then they allowed 100 yards to Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson hit everybody for a lick this year. But if you're looking at the total yardage, no one rushed for more yards against them than did Mark Walton, and did that up there in Raleigh on their senior night. So that's a stout rushing defense, and we leaned on them and got the job done. So, it has been a struggle a little bit throughout the year. Even you'll see in the bowl game, against West Virginia, everything won't be perfect. But, if we're running at that 4.5, 5 yards a clip that we have been doing, I think that will be fine. And then you have a lot of different talents at running back. Mark Walton is your kind of every down back, not great explosion, so he's not going to really run away from a lot of people, but he's stockily built, 5'9", 208 pounds, and he'll make people miss, and he has good enough speed to impact a game. Gus Edwards is moved up into that tied for second or maybe even number 2 running back position now. And it just clicked to me this year. He is 6'1.5", 230, so he's a huge guy, but he's not a power back. He's a scat back. He's a speed back. And, when I talked to him at Media Day 2 years ago, before his junior year, before he missed that year with the injury, I asked him about, okay, so about your size and are you, working to run behind your pads more? And the first thing he said to me was, well, about my speed, I'm one of the fastest guys on this team. And that struck me as weird. But then, I've been tweeting it out all season. Speed back Gus Edwards. And if you think about him in that way, even though he doesn't have that physicality, if you think of him as a speed back, he's really good. And he's also taking steps forward this year. So he's playing a lot better. Joseph Yearby, JT Wilcox, shout out to him, South Florida High School Sports, friend of mine down here. He's been calling Joe Yearby Novocaine for years because he says just give him the ball and give him time, because it's just like that Novocaine when you go to the dentist. It's going to work. It might not work right now. It might not work a minute from now. But, over time, it's going to be effective. So, yeah, with Yearby, he's very shifty. He has great vision. He can play really well. So you got 3 guys really there at running back. We have Travis Homer, who's a freshman as well. He's gotten in a couple of games, but he's really not going to carry the ball in this game, really at all. So not really part of this conversation, but there's other talent at running back as well. So, if those 3 running backs, if Walton does what he's been doing, which is he has 1,000 yards on the year and averaging almost 100 yards a game. Gus Edwards comes in, makes somebody miss. He can go the distance. Joe Yearby, even if the holes are taken, he's going to make somebody miss. And if they can be effective converting, both Yearby and Walton are excellent receivers out of the backfield as well. So, you have a multifaceted skill set there. Offensive line playing better, running backs using all their varied skills in a positive way. I think that can be an effective thing for us.
Cam, you don't want me to go through the results from the last 10 years. You know what they are. Anybody who follows college football know what they are. The point I'm going to make is not the results of the games. It's the opponent. Well, the opponents would have been great in different years, maybe a Wisconsin when they were having a better year or something like that. The point is you've been playing on the same tier of bowl games over and over and over. You know, the Russell Athletic, the Sun Bowl, the Champ Sports Bowl, that second or third tier, however you want to place it. You know what I'm talking about. Meaning, do you get excited for this game? Does the fan base get excited for this game because it's on that same line of bowl games you've been playing for most of the last 10 years?
Yeah. I bleed orange and green. I'm a Hurricane through and through. So I'm going to get excited for this game. I'm driving up to Orlando. I already got my hotel set. I already got my tickets are right here. So, I mean, I'm going. I'm hyped. You know, and a lot of guys that I know are as well. It is an interesting thing because it's going to be played on a Wednesday at 5:30. So a lot of people are complaining if they have to go to work right after Christmas, they won't be able to do that or whatever. But in a general sense, definitely pleased with the game. This is the highest bowl position that Miami could have gotten because we weren't getting into the playoff, weren't getting into New Year's Six, and weren't getting into whatever the other. There was like one other bowl that had a pick before the Russell Athletic Bowl, Citrus Bowl maybe. But anyway, this is the highest.
Yeah, you got Louisville in the Citrus Bowl. Yep,
exactly. So they were above us. But this is the highest bowl position that we could have gotten based upon where we finished on the year. It's a home state game. It's up in Orlando. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that I am as excited as I was for the Rose Bowl National Championship game. Like, that would be asinine, and everybody would know that I'm lying. Like, come on, I'm going to be real. But am I excited at all? Hell yes. West Virginia is a 10-2 team. I know they think that they're disrespected by facing a Miami team when there's, Pittsburgh was still out there to be picked or, for this game or things like that. So a lot of West Virginia writers and fans that I've seen and come across saying, well, this is disrespectful to the Mountaineers, not to the Hurricanes, to be in this game. So, hey, underestimate me. I mean, I started the hashtag Let's Be Jerks when we were looking at maybe bringing in Lane Kiffin as our coach last year. I'm fine with that. If you think that we are so or so inferior to you as West Virginians and West Virginia football fans, then come out on the 28th and beat us. Period. That's it. So everybody wants to talk about, and so that's kind of put a little fuel on my fire personally. And I haven't been much saying anything about it, but I see everything that they're talking about. Well, this team was 10-2. Yeah, but I mean, you played two decent teams, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, and they got all up in your life, like pretty decent, and then, our X's and O's guys on the site, Justin Batavio, whose stuff you should be reading at stateoftheu.com, by the way, has been evaluating all kinds of stuff. So, West Virginia's offense today, he put up a piece about their defense. He also took two different looks at the the Oklahoma game and the Oklahoma State game and said, what are some things that Miami can learn from these games? And West Virginia fans were so mad at that. Well, Miami's not Oklahoma. They don't have Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine and da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, fine. We're not Oklahoma then. So come out and beat us. But like in a general sense, yeah, I'm going to be excited about this. This is a game, West Virginia is ranked, 12th or 14th in the BCS playoff, or the college football playoff rankings. So this is a good team. Jeez, excuse me. And it's not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. But, I mean, if you're looking to have a reason why Miami can win, you have a lot of these games that we lost were one-score games. So I'm not the prevailing statement is, 4 plays away from 11-1. I don't necessarily see it as a direct parallel like that, but if you look at it in that way, you can see that there are very few things that kept us from having a better win-loss record than the one that we have. So to look at it just on paper and say West Virginia's 10-2, Miami's 8-4, West Virginia by 2 touchdowns, I think that would be faulty. I think that would be foolhardy. And yeah, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be sitting with one of my buddies. Shout out to Kevin Lewis. Yeah, what's up? and everything. Well, Sean, my bad. Kevin's his brother. But yeah, so I'm gonna be there with Lou, and I'll be seeing all these other guys in the parking lot, and I'm gonna be ready to roll. And I know this team is too. So I'm excited. I think Hurricanes fans are excited, and I'm just ready to get to the 28th.
I pick all the games, and I have no idea who's going to win this one at this point. And just because it's 10-2, 8-4, that means nothing to me. I think if you line up the rosters, Miami has a better roster, top to bottom, than West Virginia. That doesn't mean they're a better football team, but I think there's more talent and speed on the Canes roster. How that's going to translate in the game, we'll find out. To me, all bowl games are big. I just cover the Power Five, so I'm not going to speak to the other things, but I'm not going to go through my rant of why bowl games are important. But one being that this is the one time of the year, especially when the team's a little bit down, relatively speaking, Miami, that everybody's going to be if you're watching college football, you have to be watching that game. So the TV ratings are way up, and people are watching. And secondly, for a program like this, trying to transition to Mark Richt's second year with a young defense that played really well. And that you're looking for guys that got marginal playing time, but you followed them in the recruiting process, and you really want to see them have that. It's almost the first game of next season kind of feel that you want to see, okay, who's going to step up starting in 2017 that's looking forward to that. And they've had a really good 15 practices here, and they're ready to roll for 2017, and they're going to show me something in this game.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, obviously nice. Whether Miami's been up or down, you've seen us play already, because we played the only game on NBC when we played Notre Dame, and we had the primetime game against Florida State. So I don't care if you say, well, that's only because of Florida State, but, fine. That's cool. We were undefeated at that game, and I'm sure that, if you got the ratings, that was one of the top games for the year. So, yeah, Miami, we're going to just go out there, we're going to do our thing, and hopefully these bowl practices have been positive steps forward for some of those guys who can use that extra development. And come the 28th, we're just there to show up and play some good football.
All right, the Canes looking for a 9-4 finish, a bowl win, and a top 25 ranking in the final college football playoff rankings, with a win over West Virginia, who's currently at 10-2. Cam Underwood from State of the U breaking it down before he heads off to get well, enjoy the holidays, and then enjoy this football game in person. Cam, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, and I'm just going to finish with one more thing. This might be the last time that you see Brad Kaya wearing a Miami Hurricanes jersey. There is talk of him potentially going to the NFL draft after this season. If you look at the stats, he's been he's been pretty consistent with who he is throughout his career. He's already the all-time yardage leader for Miami Hurricanes passing, up there in completions and touchdowns as well. Touchdowns, I think he's second or third. But most everything, he's already rewritten the record book. If he comes back, he'll completely shatter all the records. So, he's looking to go out with a bang. Been his third bowl game, and he has not won one of the previous ones, and been very pedestrian in the first two. And that's something I wrote about in my player profile, looking at him, not for the season, but going towards his bowl game, which again is up on stateoftheu.com for you to read. So that's that. And then also David Njoku, redshirt sophomore tight end. It is fairly certain that this is going to be his last game as a Miami Hurricane. He'll be going on to the NFL draft. He's, 6'4.5", 245, runs a, high 4.4, low 4.5, 40 time. He's a physical freak. He's going to test out of the roof. He can be, a top 45 pick in the NFL draft coming out. And there's really no reason for him to come back. People have said that the tight end class this year is the strongest that it's been in years. But even in spite of that, David Njoku is, if not the top prospect, he's no lower than third. And, his talent, his athleticism and talent is spectacular. And it would not surprise me to see him go. Most people have it, people who are in the know and communicate with people about these things have Njoku is about 95% going to leave. Brad Kaya, maybe not that high of a percentage, but a couple people, Matt Miller from Bleacher Report, and there's another person who I forget right now, but they've reported that they've heard that Kaya is leaning towards leaving. So hopefully he puts up another strong game, just like he did against Duke and Pittsburgh, and is celebrating in the fourth quarter on the sideline. Kind of like the last time we were there at the Russell Athletic Bowl, how Louisville put Teddy Bridgewater back out on the field just to to have come for the field. It'd be great if we could do that for Brad and David. So, we're up by 3 or 4 scores, late in the fourth quarter, go back out in formation, sit there till 2 seconds on the play clock, call a timeout, everybody, myself included, screaming our voices out, giving a standing round of applause. That would be, exciting. But that is something that neither player has confirmed yet. They'll come back and they'll talk about that after the bowl game. But if this is the last time that you get to see the Kaya and Njoku show, I hope it's a memorable episode.
Yeah, Canes fans certainly are overdue. So you know that better than anyone. Cam Underwood, State of the U, breaking down Miami, West Virginia. It should be a good one. I think this is a good contract between the Big 12 and the ACC. Quality programs, quality teams getting together at the end of the year. Appreciate it, Cam.
No problem. See you guys.